Hello, my name is Denise Burke with Cheyenne chapter of the League of Women Voters. And it's my pleasure to introduce you to a candidate for the Wyoming legislature. And I will begin by having him introduce himself.
Hi, my name is Bob Nicholas. I live at 6225 Mountain View Drive in Cheyenne, Wyoming.
And could you tell us a little bit about your background and why you are seeking this position?
Well, I have been in the legislature now for several terms. I've got a lot of work I would still like to get done in the next session. I'm currently the chair of the Appropriations Committee, and so it's kind of a unique position to be able to influence and create the budget and put in and take it out of the budget things that I think are important for the state of Wyoming. And I really enjoy that process.
Great. Could you tell us a little bit more about your personal and professional background?
Sure. I was born and raised in Lander, Wyoming. I'm a fourth generation Wyomingite. I've lived in Cheyenne for roughly 25 years at different points of time in my life. And most recently, I've been here about 15 years, 16 years. I've been in the legislature for 14 years now, representing prior House District 8 and now House District 7 with redistricting. I have a law degree from the University of Wyoming. I practiced law in Cheyenne for an extended period of time. And I also had the opportunity to work in the Attorney General's office. I had my own private practice for a while in Riverton, Wyoming, where I lived for about 12 years. And I've always been active in politics. I've been a precinct committee person probably for probably 40 years of my life. So it's just part of what I do and what I enjoy doing.
Great. Are there any civic or volunteer things that you do, or anything else about just what makes you tick and why you would be a good?
Sure. Well, the most important one that I'm involved in right now is the Magic City Enterprises here in Cheyenne. I'm on the board of Magic City. I also have a special needs son who gets treatment and care through Magic City, so it's personal to me. So when I'm out of town or doing things, he stays with Magic City. He's 32 years old now, but he's can't really read or write, and they provide a wonderful service. And so I'm giving back to that community, to that effort, to the community. I'm a member of Kiwanis. I'm a member of the LCCC President's Advisory Board. I used to be on the Rotary here. I've just lots of different. When back in the old days, I was on the board of the Caring for Children Foundation. There's always something I've kind of dabble into. So
Great, thank you. Well, I guess we will jump into the actual questions about your candidacy. The first question is, what specific policies or reforms do you think Wyoming could effectively implement to reduce healthcare costs for the uninsured or the underinsured? You may begin.
Well, you're beginning again. Oh, I may begin. I'm sorry. I thought you said you wanted to read it over. So that's a incredibly complicated question. But the easiest and simplest thing to do, which I've been advocating for 8 years now, is to expand Medicaid. At the cost of bringing in roughly an extra 23,000 participants. Of that, 40% are single mothers and women who basically have a difficult having healthcare coverage or quality coverage. In addition to that, it provides a direct financial impact to our local providers of roughly $110 to $120 million a year. So it's a win-win for the state of Wyoming, for our healthcare providers, and for the low income and those folks who need it the most. We as a legislature we're constantly trying to figure out new ways to aid and assist. For example, we just last session increased and made permanent the nursing care contributions that we pay. Roughly right now, the state of Wyoming pays $80 million a year for long-term nursing care home care. And on the other side, we pay about roughly $40 million for other aging and those who are in need who don't have the funds to do it. So there's always more we can do, and we have a limited budget. I don't know if you may recall, but the budget for the Department of Health went up almost $400 million in the last biennium as a result of COVID and increases and offsets that over time that we now have to pony back up, and where we offset those costs before. So it's our biggest budget item. It's our most difficult one, but it's also our most important one because it provides the fundamental needs for those who need it the most in Wyoming.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, the second question is, what accountability and performance measurement standards should be required for all public, private, and charter schools?
So I think that's a fairly simple answer for me. Every school has to have the equivalent accountability requirements. And any school or any that receives state funds of any kind has to have a nationally measured system that we can evaluate and review and measure against the other schools.
Great, thank you. The third question is, what infrastructure investments do you think are necessary to support the state's long-term economic growth?
That's another very complicated question because once again, the state of Wyoming, our function is to do what private industry can't do, or to fill the gaps where it can't do it. And that also involves basic fundamental infrastructure in our local towns and communities. And we do that. We do it for loans, for water, for roads, and all various types of projects. In the last biennial budget, we allocated roughly $250 million, particularly for infrastructure projects across the state of Wyoming. There's various grant procedures that we make funds available for federal grants for pipelines, water and sewer, and things like that. But we all recognize that our communities are first in line, in need of having the basic infrastructure so Wyoming can grow. And unfortunately, we're trending in the wrong direction. We have an aging population, we have less youth, and frankly, even though we have some divergence in our economy, we really don't have a lot. We're still a three-legged stool. But so have good roads, good government, good schools, and provide as the best business environment that we can, and allow the cities and counties to do everything that they can to shore themselves up so that they can provide basic fundamental infrastructure so that we can continue to grow.
Excellent, thank you. And our last question, how would you engage in constructive dialogue with those who have opposing views?
Well, I do that every day in the session. I try. It's an interesting issue. The legislature is probably more polarized now than it has been ever, and it's a tough deal, and we work on it. I mean, it's resulted in a two-party Republican system where you have the Wyoming Caucus and the Freedom Caucus, and we continue to try to find common ground, but unfortunately, one side doesn't want common ground. In fact, one side are flamethrowers, and the other side is trying to put out the flames. And as long as that position, that dichotomy exists, it will be difficult, and the quality of bills are not what they used to be. So we just need to I think circle the wagons, be Wyoming, act like Wyoming, and work to make Wyoming first. And if we kind of reorient our goals and objectives, then we'll all start walking down the same road together.
Excellent, thank you. So in conclusion then, if you were elected, what would you hope to achieve? And what is the greatest strength that you would bring to this position? Why should voters choose you over your opponent?
Well, I never liked the last part of that question. I just wrote, and I think the question should be, why should they pick me, period. Now, you know, I've been in the legislature for a while. I think I'm fairly good at it. I'm the longest serving chair of appropriations in recent history. And the only way that happens is by being able to work with both sides or all the sides of the legislative floor, and to get along with people and to put together a reasonable budget that gets support, which is always the most important thing when you're in that position. The budget and the supplemental budget kind of become your mantra, and everything else kind of sits on the wayside. So for me, that's always the most important thing, and that's the primary purpose of government is to pay our bills, take care of those who are in need and who need it the most, and then let the private entities and government and business function and operate as freely as they can, but also contribute to society and make sure that we have the infrastructure and the framework that we can live wonderful lives. And fortunately, in Wyoming, we can do that. We are so blessed with our mineral wealth over the past 50 years that we're in a class of our own in terms of what we have for permanent savings and for the future of our kids. So what I've been working on for the past 4 years particularly is preparing us for the days when we no longer have the extra dollars of mineral wealth, because 70% of our state budget, one fashion or another, is created through our property, for our mineral extraction industries. We all know that can't go on forever. And the substitutes for that don't have the same type of monetary production. You just don't get that much comparable income. Even if you take the wind power, for example, it just doesn't earn us that much money. Soda ash doesn't provide that much coffers into the state of Wyoming. So what I've been working on is increasing the size of our permanent mineral trust fund. Over the past 3 years, we've increased it by about $2.4 billion. And so the purpose of that is 25 years from now, 50 years from now, when our mineral wealth is gone, we will have a permanent mineral trust fund that will take its place. Right now, our permanent mineral trust fund covers about 23% of our standard budget. If we keep doing what we're doing, and if we save wisely and do not spend more than for what we need, then that will take over what our mineral wealth is doing in 25 or 30 years. And if we invest it properly, that's one of the things I as a chair of CAPFIN, another committee that I'm on, we've changed the investment policies and procedures. But as a result of that, we're just beginning to see the differences. But the forecast is that will be anywhere between 150 to 200 million in just income alone, over and above what the balance of those funds to what we already see. And so we'll continue to grow that over time. And with this foresight, we're going to make a difference for our kids' kids and their kids. And so that's kind of my primary focus right now.
Great,
I think you're muted.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I was muted. So I'm going to stop the recording now. And thank you again for putting yourself out there to run for this important role.
Thank you,
And
Denise.
you bet. You take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.